Hey guys, Fresh Bread Homestead here, and today we're going to make some sourdough sandwich loaves. So this recipe is a labor of love, and it's going to take 2 days, but it is definitely well worth it. And we're going to start off with our sourdough starter, of course. I'm going to be adding 250 grams into my bowl, and you're going to want to use a fairly large bowl because this is a recipe for 2 loaves, not 1. So I use my discard here. Some people will use active starter that's at its peak. I haven't really noticed a difference in using either, so it's just whatever I have on hand is what I'm going to use. So after the starter is all weighed out, now it's time to add the water. It's going to be 730 grams. I'm going to use just tap water straight from my sink, and I try to get it as hot as possible. I find that it makes mixing a little bit easier. So after you have all that weighed out, then it's time to add the flour. This will be 1,000 grams, and I'm using all-purpose flour right here. You can use bread flour, whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour. It doesn't really matter. I haven't noticed any different. I've tried the latter, and it all tastes the same in the end. After the flour is all weighed out, then you're going to give it a good stir just until everything gets incorporated, because once you do your stretch and folds, that's when everything really comes together. I did let the dough rest for 30 minutes before I added the salt and did my first round of stretch and folds. And then after this, it's going to be every 30 minutes for 2 hours. You'll do another set of stretch and folds. A lot of people like to use their hands, so they'll just dip their hands in water, and then perform the stretch and folds. I have 2 little kids, so getting my hands that messy is not really ideal. So I like to use my whisk here, and it doesn't really make any difference. After you finish your last round of stretch and folds, you're going to want to cover it and then let it sit at room temperature for about 12-ish hours, or you can let it sit in the fridge overnight. This is what the dough will look like if you let it sit at room temperature for about 12 hours, nice and poofed up, a nice jiggle, and then I like to just press all the air out of it, or as much as I can possibly get. And then I grab my bowl scraper, and I like to put down a pretty hefty amount of flour so it doesn't stick to my surface, and then just scrape the edges of the bowl, making sure you get all the last little bits of dough so there's no waste. Once the dough's all on the counter, I'll sprinkle flour on top of it. It kind of helps with the stickiness. And then just eyeball it, but split the dough into 2 loaves. Usually I don't get it exact, but that's okay. It all turns out beautiful in the end, as you'll see. And then take one and just start shaping it. So I like to roll it like a log, and then I'll turn it sideways and then roll it again. And this is where you're building the tension in the dough. So you're going to notice that there's air bubbles. That's okay. You want to work it on the surface, how I'm doing, just in that circular motion to kind of push all those air bubbles out. And like I said, this is building tension. So the more you work with it, the more tension you build. You'll shape both loaves, and then I like to just plop them on the back of my counter because, as you can see, my son's sticky fingers get up there and I don't want him messing with the dough. So after you shaped both loaves, you let them sit for 20 minutes and then just repeat that process of shaping again. After the second shaping, it's time to let them rise again. So just place them in whatever you want the shape to be. Here I'm doing sandwich loaves, so I put them in bread pans. You can put them in bantons or Rubbermaid containers, whatever you have on hand, and then place them in the fridge overnight. In the morning, I'll take them out and time to bake them. So I place them in a 375-degree oven for about 45 minutes until they're golden brown on top. Or you can tap on the top of the bread, and if it sounds hollow, that's how you know they're done. And then there you go. You have some beautiful sandwich loaves to enjoy.